My name is Carolyn Fisher. I am 56 years old, and I live in Denver, Colorado. For more than 10 years, I have been working as a nursing assistant in a small hospital on the south side of the city. My husband passed away a decade ago, leaving me to raise our two children, Joshua and Hannah, all by myself. The world outside always saw me as strong, dependable, someone who never broke down. But inside, I was just a mother fighting each day to give her children the life they deserved. When other families planned vacations, I planned double shifts. When other women bought new clothes, I patched my old ones and pretended they were still good enough. I worked nights, I worked weekends, and I worked holidays. The hospital became my second home, and the sound of beeping machines often replaced the sound of laughter I once dreamed of having in my own living room. Still, I never complained. Every dollar I earned went into rent, bills, and most importantly, the education of my children. I used to sit quietly in the kitchen, sipping cold coffee after a 12-hour shift, and smile when I saw Joshua studying late at night or Hannah finishing a college paper. I used to think, this is worth it. My sacrifices will not go in vain. They will grow up and remember who held them when the nights were cold and who stood by them when life got hard. But life doesn't always give back what you invest. Sometimes, the people you give everything to are the same people who break you. When Joshua turned 28, he married a woman named Rebecca. At first, I was overjoyed. I thought I was gaining a daughter, someone who would add more love to the family, someone who would fill the empty space left after my husband's passing. I welcomed Rebecca with open arms. I cooked for her. I bought her gifts, even though I could hardly afford them, and I told myself that this was the beginning of something beautiful. But it wasn't. From the very beginning, Rebecca never truly accepted me. Her smile felt polite, her hugs were cold, and she often looked at me as though I didn't belong. At family dinners, she sat close to Joshua, whispering things in his ear, laughing only when I wasn't speaking. I noticed how she avoided eye contact whenever I asked her questions about her life or family. Still, I kept quiet. I told myself, give it time. Maybe she just needs to adjust. Maybe she'll see that I'm not here to compete, only to love. I wanted peace more than pride, so I swallowed my hurt. I thought Joshua would notice, but he seemed too blinded by love to realize how Rebecca was slowly building a wall between us. I didn't know then that this was only the beginning of a painful distance. Slowly, family gatherings began to change. At first, I wasn't invited to small weekend dinners. Then birthdays came and went, and I would hear about them only afterward. When I asked Joshua about it, he would say, "Mum, you're overthinking. Rebecca just wanted something simple this time." But I wasn't overthinking. I was being pushed out of my own son's life, and he didn't even realize it, or maybe he didn't care enough to stop it. Holidays were the hardest. Thanksgiving had always been my favorite time, a chance to sit around the table, hold hands, and thank God for the little we had. But now, I found myself alone, heating leftovers in the microwave while my children celebrated somewhere else. Neighbors asked, "Didn't your kids invite you?" And I would force a smile, pretending everything was fine. Inside, though, my heart broke a little more each day. I started to feel invisible in the very life I had built. One evening, after finishing a long shift at the hospital, I came home exhausted. I checked my phone and saw a message from Joshua. My heart lifted for a moment, thinking he was inviting me over. But when I opened it, my world collapsed. The text read, "Mom, you're not invited to dinner tonight. Rebecca doesn't want you there." I froze. My hands trembled as I read those words again and again. My chest tightened, and I felt like I couldn't breathe. I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the screen, unable to believe that my own son had typed those words. It wasn't just about the dinner. It was about what it meant. That I was unwanted. That I was being erased from his new life. that all the years I had sacrificed for him didn't matter anymore. I cried quietly that night, the kind of cry that doesn't make a sound, but leaves your soul shattered. After reading that message, I couldn't eat, I couldn't sleep. I sat in the dark, thinking about every night I had stayed awake when Joshua was sick as a child, every hour I had worked to pay for his college, every tear I had hidden just so he could smile. And now, with one text message, it all felt meaningless. I looked around my small apartment, the worn-out couch, the cracked photo frames, the faded curtains, and wondered if this was all my life had come to. I had poured everything into my children, and yet, at the age of 56, I was sitting alone, unwanted, uninvited. I kept asking myself, what did I do wrong? Why wasn't my love enough? But there were no answers, only silence and the ache of betrayal. That night, I realized something painful. Sometimes the people you give your life to will treat you like a stranger, and no amount of sacrifice can change a heart that doesn't want you. The next morning, I tried to carry on as usual, but my heart was heavy. I couldn't shake the image of Joshua's message from my mind. I wandered through the living room, staring at old photographs of my children as toddlers, smiling and carefree, unaware of the world's hardships. It was then that Hannah noticed my silence. She had just come home from her college classes and saw the storm behind my eyes. "Mum," she said softly, approaching me, "I can see something is wrong." I tried to brush it off, but the tears betrayed me. I handed her my phone, showing her Joshua's message. Her eyes widened, and she immediately wrapped her arms around me. "Mum, you don't deserve this. You gave us everything, your time, your love, your life. You shouldn't be treated like this by your own son," Hannah said firmly, her voice steady but filled with emotion. For the first time since reading that message, I felt understood. Hannah's support gave me strength I didn't realize I had lost. We talked for hours that day. She listened as I poured out my pain, my years of sacrifices, and my fear that I was becoming invisible to the people I loved most. She reminded me of my worth, of the dignity I had maintained through all these years, and how no one could strip that away from me. Through her words, I realized that while Joshua's behavior hurt deeply, I still had a family that truly valued me. Hannah's comfort was like a shield, protecting me from drowning in sorrow. That day, I decided that my love for my children would not become my weakness. I could still love them without losing respect for myself. That night, I lay awake, thinking about the message, about the years of sacrifices, and about the countless times I had put others before myself. I came to a realization. I had spent so long trying to be everything to everyone that I had forgotten to be something for myself. I decided I would no longer chase love or validation from those who did not appreciate it. I wouldn't beg Joshua to include me or allow him to treat me as optional. This wasn't about revenge. It was about self-respect. I made a promise to myself that I would maintain my boundaries, that I would continue to love my children, but on terms that protected my dignity. I informed Hannah about my decision, and she supported it wholeheartedly. Together, we talked about practical ways to enforce these boundaries, declining uninvited visits, limiting financial support unless necessary, and prioritizing our own emotional well-being. This was the first time in years that I felt empowered rather than powerless. Weeks later, a crisis forced Joshua to confront reality. Rebecca fell seriously ill, and suddenly he needed help. He called me, panic in his voice, pleading for my assistance with the children and household responsibilities. I paused before responding. I could hear the desperation, but I also remembered the text that had broken my heart. I realized this was his chance to see the consequences of his actions, and mine to assert the boundaries I had promised myself. "I'll come," I told him calmly, "but understand that respect is not optional. I am your mother, and I will help. But the way I have been treated cannot continue." For the first time, I saw hesitation and guilt in his voice. He hadn't expected resistance. His panic was genuine, but my decision forced him to acknowledge the hurt he had caused. Thanksgiving arrived, and I decided it was time to speak openly. The table was set, the family gathered, and I took a deep breath. "Joshua," I began, my voice steady, "love is a choice, but respect for your mother should never be optional. I raised you, sacrificed for you, and supported you through every stage of life. To be treated like I am invisible hurts more than words can describe." There was silence. Joshua looked down at his plate, guilt and realization slowly crossing his face. I continued, "I will always love you, but I will no longer allow my love to be treated as a license to disregard me. Boundaries are necessary. Respect is non-negotiable." Hannah, sitting beside me, nodded, silently reinforcing my message. I could feel the tension in the room, but I also felt a sense of relief. For the first time, I spoke my truth without fear, and the weight that had been crushing my heart began to lift slightly. After that confrontation, Joshua began to understand the gravity of his actions. He saw how much he had hurt me, not just with words, but with years of neglect and passive exclusion. Over the next few days, he approached me with apologies, sincere and heartfelt. "Mum, I am so sorry. I didn't realize how my words and actions affected you. I took your love for granted," he said, his eyes reflecting genuine remorse. I accepted his apology, but reminded him that rebuilding trust would take time. Boundaries were necessary for both healing and maintaining the dignity that I had fought so hard to preserve. This turning point marked the beginning of a new chapter, where love and respect had to coexist. I felt lighter, empowered, and more confident than I had in years. The bond with Hannah strengthened, and for the first time in a long while, I felt hopeful about restoring a meaningful connection with Joshua. A few days after the Thanksgiving confrontation, Joshua approached me cautiously. He looked hesitant, as if stepping on fragile ground. I could see the guilt in his eyes, the weight of realization finally settling in. He paused before speaking, then whispered, "Mum, I am so sorry. I didn't understand before how much I hurt you. I was blind, and I took your love for granted." I listened quietly, letting the words sink in. There was no dramatic outburst, no shouting, just honesty and remorse. It was a moment that I had waited for, though I didn't know how long it would take. I nodded slowly, acknowledging his apology. I could feel my own heart soften, but I knew that forgiveness was a process, not a single moment. Joshua asked if I could forgive him completely, but I explained gently, "I can forgive, but trust has to be rebuilt step by step. You cannot undo years of neglect overnight." He agreed, understanding that respect and care were not automatic. They had to be nurtured and demonstrated consistently. That day marked the first step toward healing. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. I realized that while words could apologize, actions would prove sincerity. I felt a mix of relief and hope as I saw my son taking the first steps toward understanding what his mother truly deserved. Over the next weeks, we began the careful process of rebuilding our relationship. I set clear boundaries, no longer allowing myself to be treated as optional. Joshua understood that every interaction had to be based on mutual respect. We started with small things, inviting me to events in advance, including me in family decisions, and listening when I expressed my opinions. Hannah supported me through this process, always reminding Joshua to value and respect me. Slowly, I felt a sense of balance returning to our home. My heart was no longer weighed down by constant anxiety and fear of rejection. I had reclaimed my dignity, and that made a huge difference in how I approached my children and our family interactions. This period taught me a crucial lesson. Love alone is not enough to maintain a relationship. Respect and boundaries are equally important. Without them, Even the strongest bonds can crack under the weight of neglect or indifference. As weeks turned into months, our family began to find a new rhythm. Joshua and I talked more openly, with honesty and vulnerability. He would ask for my advice, involve me in decisions, and genuinely listen when I spoke. It wasn't easy at first. Old habits die hard, and the memory of past pain lingered. But each small gesture, each acknowledgement of respect, slowly healed the wounds. I also noticed a change in myself. I no longer felt invisible or unappreciated. I had learned to stand firm in my self-worth, and that strength radiated in every interaction. The home felt warmer, more balanced, and filled with the cautious but real optimism that comes from seeing genuine change in those you love. The true turning point came when Joshua took the initiative to create a family dinner, inviting both me and Hannah without prompting from me. He openly expressed gratitude for all I had done for him, for the sacrifices I had made, and for the unwavering love I had shown. For the first time, I felt truly seen. My heart swelled with a mix of joy, relief, and pride, not just for my children, but for myself. I realized that standing firm and valuing myself had not created distance. Instead, it had inspired recognition and respect. It was a powerful moment, one that reminded me why I had made those difficult choices, to honor myself while continuing to love my family. This turning point symbolized the transformation of our relationships from neglect and pain to understanding and connection. Reflecting on everything, I understood a profound truth. Family betrayal can cut the deepest, but self-respect heals the strongest. No matter how much love you give, you should never allow yourself to be treated as optional. Respect is not a bonus. It is the foundation of every meaningful relationship. I learned that standing up for yourself does not make you selfish. It makes you wise. Protecting your dignity allows love to flourish in a healthy, sustainable way. My relationship with Joshua and Hannah continues to grow, now based on mutual understanding, respect, and care. If there is one thing I want everyone to take from my story, it is this: never beg to belong where you are not valued. Hold your head high, honor yourself, and love without losing yourself in the process.